I cannot see shit through these Dolce & Gabbana lenses. Vision felt too boring, had to make that shit expensive. Need my words off foreign, we need all matte black and Benzes. Yeah, I put on for my city like my name was Michael Penix.
Told you we always been ready. I don't need people that's petty, that weigh on me heavy while I'm being steady. I need a record with Felly. We get it bouncing like Betty's, I feel like I'm Nelly. Don't bring the beef like a deli, it's leaving I levy. No sleeping on me like I'm Freddy. Chris Breeze, how I do, hit him with the moves. Left hand step back, ballin' like I'm cool. All faith, God's plan, you just gotta choose. God slaps, nothing left to prove. Y'all gotta leave me alone. Lately I've been in my zone. Told them no cap like I fitted, but lately the flows have been straight off the dome. I feel like I'm MVP, like my name Patty Mahomes. If it ain't about money, don't hit on my phone, cause lately I've been in my zone.
Hello, welcome to the Cowboy Show, hosted by Ben Carey and Nick Gronerad, combining expert human opinions with cutting-edge simulation models to help you arrive at the best picks each week. Inside Edge Community. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to College Football Saturday. I'm Ben Carey, and joining me is Iveta. How are we doing this morning?
Doing great, Ben. How are you?
Doing pretty good. We had some technical difficulties on Wednesday, but we got them all figured out, and we're ready to roll. And I'm happy because we got a pretty good slate. Now, on the surface, I don't think it looks as good as it did last week as far as some of maybe more of the premier type of matchups, but I think there is enough stuff from a betting perspective that, you know, we can kind of find some value in and find some edges in. So do you kind of feel the same just from that perspective?
I am very glad you mentioned that because I was going through my bets last night and I'm like, wow, I have a lot of bets out and I didn't know they're not sexy matchups. Like you said, it's just but I feel like there's a lot of good value.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I like a lot more of the board than I did last weekend, despite the games being not as competitive. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I was trying to figure out what my best bet's gonna be, and I'm just like, "Oh my god, I have to," which could be a really bad thing if I have too much
Mm-hmm.
confidence going into this week. But yeah, no, I think from a betting perspective, it's definitely, it's a good slate, and that also could mean, we could see some upsets today too, so we'll see how that goes. I'm kinda dreading to see what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, for me, like, I'll have those weeks where I don't like a lot, but then I'll have within that slate, I'll have something that I really like. But sometimes it's the other way around where it's like I don't like anything a lot, but then it's harder for me to kind of find something that I really like for that segment. So it just kind of varies week by week. But this week definitely have some weather. We have a hurricane hitting basically the Northeast, you could say. Tell us about that. Tell us what you've been tracking. I mean, you're the expert. I'm not going to sit here and see. This is why we have you on, because in the past, you would have me on here just acting like I'm a weather person with a green screen behind me. But no, we're bringing in the expert here. So tell us about like what the hurricane's been doing, where it's headed, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I actually just looked at the updates, this morning shortly before we came on. Hurricane Lee, it's like to the northeast of Cape Cod and that whole area. So if you look at a map, it's to the northeast of that, but the way the winds are rotating, they're still getting a decent amount of wind. So this was such a tricky system to forecast because even minor track shifts can create a significant difference. And that's because when hurricanes reach this north of a latitude, two things tend to happen. So first, the wind field typically expands and becomes significantly larger than the average wind field that the National Hurricane Center uses to derive that wind speed probability product. So it's almost like a deceiving wind forecast because it's not taking everything into account. And the game forecast might be showing 12 mile per hour winds, for example, but we have enough confidence that it'll actually be windier, especially near the coast. And then the closer it tracks to the coast, the greater the chance of those heavy rain bands moving onshore. And then, of course, that can postpone or cancel the game altogether. So when it's just wind, it's okay. But if those rain bands start moving in, then we start looking at some other potential hazards. So the other thing is, as the storm undergoes what we call extratropical transition, so as it loses its tropical characteristics, it tends to become asymmetrical. And then it starts to take on more of a comma shape rather than a circular shape.
And it can kind of pick up speed a little bit.
Exactly. So
look at me.
Yeah, your hurricanes, Ben.
Well, it's kind of like physics, like it starts to build that force. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll stop.
Stop there, right.
Continue.
Yeah. So it focuses the heaviest rain and wind to one side of the storm, and then it can cause it to accelerate. So that's the other aspect of it is timing. And this is huge because the models might be in agreement on the track, but increase or decrease in forward speed can drastically affect the time of the arrival of the winds. So sometimes that discrepancy is up to 24 hours. So stadium orientation plays a role, especially in that regard, right? Because
big time.
So if it's oriented north to south, right, it makes a big difference whether the storm is to the north, to the west, or to the south. So you could get the strongest wind at the team's back. You could get a crosswind, right? That could impact a lot of things, especially things like kicking. So there's a lot of different aspects to it. And well, let me know when you're ready to actually talk about the bets.
Let's talk about there's one game that we probably won't get into in depth that we at least have scheduled on. I think it was FIU and UConn, because that was one that is going to be affected or impacted by the hurricane. So we could talk about that one because that one's seen a pretty significant move from a total perspective. And I mean, I'm trying to find it on here. It's not pulling out. It started pretty low, correct? It was like, let me see.
Yeah, I think so. We got it at 44.5, and now I just saw that on the unabated board here.
It's at 42.5.
Okay.
Did it come back up a little bit?
Yeah, because a couple nights ago it was at 41.5. So it looks like it came back up.
So here's my question: is there anything from the weather forecast that would propel the total back up a little bit, or do you think that people are just looking at this and they're like, it's just too low?
Right, exactly. So it's interesting because we locked in FSU Boston College at 55.5, and then now I think it's at it went down to 46, and then now I might be back up to like 47.5. Something.
Yeah, I'm showing 47.5 right now.
Okay, yeah. And then FIU at UConn at 44.5, and Virginia Tech at Rutgers we got at 40.5, and I believe that one's gone down as well. But so what happened was, Lee did speed up, like you said, and it's tracking a little further from the coast. So that wind threat decreased from initially being over 25 miles per hour during the games to now it's about in the 15 to 25 mile per hour range. And then the Better Weather website has been updating that accordingly. There's not much of a rain threat during the games. Most of the showers are light, and most of them should be making their way out this morning. But these types of events, when you have a large scale system like this, can also create a lot of overreaction in the market. So at some point, you have to question, like you said, whether it's been bet down too much, because the FSU game, I mean, we got a 10-point swing. So that can create really good middling opportunities for those
Yeah.
of you that really, that like to do that, that you'd otherwise only get if you're betting something live,
Hmm.
right? So with FIU UConn, so with Florida State, right, scored at least 35 points in 8 straight games, two stellar running backs in Trey Benson and Lawrence Toafili. So they can still move the ball on the ground, especially against Boston
Yeah.
College's poor run defense. So they're going to be able to score. Now, they probably won't have an incentive to run up the score with Clemson on deck, but
Hmm.
I could still see that game being like, maybe like a 35-7, something along those lines. But the FIU UConn game is, was going to be lower scoring already.
Yeah, FIU's offense is
Yeah,
pretty bad to begin with, so it kind of compounds,
right.
what you could expect to see, because yeah, FIU, I don't know how they're going to put up more than 2 touchdowns in this game, to be completely honest.
Right. So I think in that game, it's still justified. I think in that game and the Virginia Tech Rutgers game, which right now they're about equal as far as I think they're both at like 15-mile-per-hour winds right now
Hmm.
as far as game time forecast. So I think FIU UConn and the Virginia Tech Rutgers games, I think there's still a little value on those unders because Rutgers has that, they have a stellar defense.
Hmm.
Virginia Tech, we've seen what they've done in the past couple of games. So I'm expecting both of those games to be low scoring. I think there's still a little bit of wiggle room there. I
Hmm.
would be weary of the FSU game. I wouldn't touch that at this number unless, like you said, unless you want to go back up and
Hmm. No,
maybe
I appreciate you breaking that down, because this is something that sports bettors always get caught up into, and regardless of weather or whatever it is, um, you can like a team, and then you can just say like, oh, I really like this spot for this team, but at some point there is a threshold, and sharp bettors have been doing this for years. I mean, you look at like Billy Walters, like, he'll look at numbers, especially like in a sport like NFL, like if it's at a number 3 versus like 4, like that is all the difference in the world for what side he's on. So it's good to just break it down that way, because it is a bad habit I see a lot on social media, right? Like people will just play anything, they'll steam chase, but at some point, like, let's say hypothetically this got down to like 44, then you'd probably be like, no, man, this is probably the time maybe to middle, right? Like with the conditions at hand. So uh yeah, it's a really good point. I think that we always need to reiterate, because I even can almost get in the trap of it sometimes too.
Well, yeah, because it looks so tempting and it feels like you're getting so much value, right?
Hmm.
So I think, you have to step back at some point and think, okay, well, at what point is this getting out of hand? So,
Exactly.
and I think we were blessed in this case with a 10-point,
Yeah.
at some point it got to 10 points, a 10-point total movement, which again is one of those.
Significant. Mm.
Yeah.
I think
So
I got in at 49.
okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember I was like, well, it does suck that I didn't get it at 57, 56, or anything like that, but there was enough there where I was like, I think it's still gonna drop a little bit, so got a little bit of value, but yeah, we'll see. And Boston College is a team that offensively I don't have a lot of faith in them scoring, kind of like what you said, and then Florida State, they have Clemson on deck, so yeah, maybe they kind of take the foot off the gas just a little bit, um, come in the third, fourth quarter. So
Yeah,
are you ready to hop into the games that we have scheduled?
absolutely.
Let's do
Let's
it. And before we do that, I want to give a quick shout out to Unabated, something that I use every day. I know Yvetta uses it. Guys, if you're serious about making money on sports betting, you have to have an odds screen. Like it's imperative. I like people ask me all the time. They're like, "What do I do to start?" I'm like, if you don't have an odds screen, you're just going in blindly. And the joke I use now is like Twitter or X is not your odds screen. Like you can't use that as like your first source of truth because all that information is usually a little old, right? Like, and in this space, like real time, you see these numbers flash in real time on screen. Like you need an odd screen. So if you guys want to try out Unabated, use our promo code CW for 5% off your monthly rate. Again, it pays for itself, and the tools too. We haven't even used much on screen. You can do comparison on numbers and things like that, which I used late last night when I was feeding my baby. I was like, is a 3.5 at this number better than a 3 at this number? So really good stuff there. But without further ado, we'll hop into the first game, and I'm gonna roll the clip right now.
Daddy's gone. I'll tell you who his daddy is, because if he keeps messing up, the tribal chief is going to be his daddy.
So who's your daddy? I should have used the clip last night. I guess The Rock and Pat McAfee, I think, were at WWE in Denver. I should have thought about that. In my head, I was like, wow, that would have been perfect time to update that clip. But anyways, we're talking about a game where one team has owned the other. And I don't know if you knew this, Yvette, but Cincinnati has beaten Miami of Ohio 16 straight games. 16 straight. Which is kind of funny because we have all these little rivalries in college football, and I go into Wikipedia and it's called like the Victory Bell, I think, trophy or whatever. And yeah, it's been a pretty dominant one-sided rivalry. So maybe Miami of Ohio needs to win one soon, or they're going to have to retire this rivalry because it's not, it hasn't been pretty for Miami of Ohio. So I want to first start off with this before I get your opinion on this. Well, let me get the line here. So 44 is the total. I think it is sitting at 14 and a half. It was like 15 and a half. Surprisingly, people are backing Miami of Ohio. And the reason why I say that is because I had a lot of faith in this team headed into that first matchup against Miami, Florida. Now, granted, Miami, Florida looked a lot better than I think some were expecting. Something about this Redhawks team is off. It's weird because they return so many players from last season. But even last week, they won, but against a UMass team, the offense still looked off at times, even though they scored over 40. I think they had one touchdown on like a 99-yard run, which is kind of a outlier one-off. And then I think they had a fumble return to the crib. I think offensive efficiency-wise, they're still like bottom 10%. So I'm a little surprised that maybe some sharps are backing Miami of Ohio in a Cincinnati team that isn't bad. I want to hear your thoughts on the spread in total.
So I'm so glad you mentioned the battle for the Victory Bell, because
this is a funny comment. This is very true.
This is so like you said, they've won 16 straight. So Cincinnati's won 16 straight. This is the oldest non-conference college football rivalry in the U.S. dating
like
1888. So this was the first college football game ever played in the state of Ohio. So,
wow. So no video review back in the day.
yeah. I think this was this might have been pre-leather helmet days.
Oh wow, they were going straight.
I think
raw helmet. That's crazy.
So super old rivalry. So remember that first game against Miami, Florida, when they were talking about, all the Miami, Ohio people were like, well, we've been a school for,
like we're the real Miami, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So they were the first. That game between Cincinnati and Miami, Ohio was the first college football game played in Ohio. And I didn't know that until I started digging into this game a little bit. And so they're just a quick 40-minute drive down Highway 27. So they're close proximity wise there. And I think Cincinnati's going to win and cover today. I know Cincy just came off a big win over Pittsburgh, but they've got a veteran Power 5 quarterback in Emory Jones. He's off to a terrific start. He's got a 76% completion rate, and that compared to Gabbert's 55% completion rate. He's played great. They run the ball really well. They should be able to drop plenty of points on that bad Miami, Ohio defense. And on the flip side, Miami, Ohio's inefficient on offense. Cincinnati, if I can say that correctly, has a very solid defensive unit. They only give up 17 points per game. And I just don't see how the Red Hawks find the horses to keep up. I see what you're saying about, I know people have been on Miami, Ohio. I can't justify it. I looked at it.
I can't either.
I tried to dissect it 8 ways from Sunday, and okay, maybe there's something I'm missing. So I was actually going to ask you that today, is there something, what's the justification there? Because I just don't see it. I don't know how to get there.
I think it's 2 things for me. I think one, just the number getting, 14 and a half. Now it's at 14. So I doubt as many are going to be on the 14. And then if it hit 13 and a half, I feel like the Sharps
Go the other way.
It would be on the other side, but I don't think it's going to get to 13 and a half. But the other thing too, is I know you mentioned Miami of Ohio's defense hasn't been the best, which is true. But this is where it gets tricky because, are we trusting our priors? And I know Nick said the joke, like, if a lot of the returning players aren't good, like if they're shit, it's not a good thing. And he's totally right. But the thing is like last season, their defense was pretty good. Granted, it's like MAC competition. So sometimes it's hard to, break down like how good that is versus like a team in the SEC. Right. But I think there is still some hope that some of the sharper bettors are like, well, maybe I had this closer to like 10 preseason, right? And maybe they're potentially seeing a little bit of value, but I just can't do it because even though like a team returns the same players, that doesn't just guarantee the same success. There's still like a lot of things that can happen. It's rare, right? Like it's hard for a team to just go backwards with the same players, but it happens. I mean, again, it's rare. Like it can be complex on why it happens, but here we are. So anyways, I think that helps just like break down this line just a tad. As far as like the total goes, I'm actually leaning under a little bit, but it could be one of those games where like Cincinnati actually really has some success and they put up like 31 themselves and, it's like 31-14 and, they get the cover and that's an over. So, for me, I think my lean is going to have to be Cincinnati at minus 14. It sounds like that's kind of where you're at too.
Yeah, 100%. If it at 14 and a half, I would even take it at 14 and a half. I mean, after watching Miami, Ohio, I mean, that game was painful to watch.
Gabbert did a lot of talking and not a lot of a lot of showing with his arm or any of his play. I was a little disappointed. That was like one of those losses where you sit and you're just like, man, I got bamboozled there.
Yeah, you feel like you got robbed for having to watch that game, right? It's the good thing that came out of that, I think, is it gave us a much better insight on Miami, Florida, and how 100%. that game helped me from a handicapping perspective for that Texas A&M game because just seeing, I don't know if I would have watched that game otherwise if I didn't have action on it.
100%. So let's move on to the next game. Unfortunately, I don't have the video clip for this one, but I'll have it next week. It's really good too. It's Bad Blood by Taylor Swift, and The players are talking shit to each other, but I don't have it fired up. L on my end. But this is going to be a fun one because Tennessee, Florida to begin with has always been like a fun rivalry, hated rivalry. It's a SEC matchup, and let me just pull this up here. So this spread is really interesting to me because I was looking at this and tracking it throughout the week, and Florida is getting some really good money, some influential money. The books are respecting it because it was sitting, I think, at 7. Correct me if I'm wrong. And maybe it was a 7.5, and now it's down to 5.5. And of course, Florida's the dog. I know they're at home. Fun little fact here. I think I got this from Brad Powers, dating back to 1976. As far as the ATS logs go, Tennessee has never been more than a field goal favorite at Florida. So coming in at 7, and you have to go back to 1993. They were -1 at Florida, and then 2015 was a PK. They lost barely. They were 6.5 point road favorites. So this is kind of rare, and it makes sense, right? Like that environment. Have you been to the Swamp before? Have you seen a game there?
Yeah.
Yeah, like you could back this up. It's crazy. Like it's
Very,
it's
very
up,
loud.
very loud. And you talk about all the talent that's been coming through Florida the last few years. They had to make a whole documentary on it. So it is kind of weird to see Florida like open up as a 7-point dog, but I think it's kind of warranted because Graham Mertz hasn't looked good, and they didn't look good against Utah. Granted, that was a tough place to play too, in Salt Lake, but now it's dropped down to 5.5. And I want to hear your thoughts on this before I kind of give you my opinion where the number's at. What are your thoughts on 5.5 for Tennessee?
I like it. I don't really know what to make of this game. Florida's won 8 of the last 10, and Tennessee hasn't won in the Swamp since 2003. So it's been 20 years since they've won at Florida. Like you mentioned, it's a tough place to play. It's very loud. It gets really loud because that stadium is really steep. So the walls, if you're sitting in the end zone, they used to put the FSU students in the like upper end zones.
Sounds like the timeout area, right? Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they would put the FSU students in the upper end zone. And because it's so steep, you can't see the goal line. You can't see beyond like the 5-yard line or something. So the design it's wild how they design that thing, but that contributes to why it's so loud. I think the motivation factor favors Florida here, but Mertz, he hasn't looked good, but he's actually been highly efficient so far.
He's Mertz, that's like kind of a Mertz thing to do. He's not flashy.
Exactly.
So maybe I was talking a little too much shit about him.
No, but it's warranted, right? Because I did the same thing, the Florida Utah game. We were trying to gauge what he was going to do, but you're right. He's not flashy, but I think his completion percentage is something like 77%, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know it's pretty good, and they have a good offensive line. I think they also have the advantage on defense. They've got a pretty good run defense. Although Tennessee's defense has improved, I think Florida can slow this game down. This total is a lot lower than many people expected, and I think that might be why.
Big time.
Yeah, most people expected this to be a higher scoring game, and then when it came out in the 50s, I think it was, right? It was kind of surprising, but I didn't take a position in this game. With the line movement, I have to lean Tennessee. They're a more explosive offense. They can move the ball quickly on the ground and in the air. I think as long as they don't make a ton of mistakes, that they should be able to cover that number. So, of course, Florida's got the home field advantage there too, but I just,
it's tough. It is, because the line move for me, and this is kind of going back to what I was saying earlier about the the number, and when sharps are on something, because I guarantee you a lot of the sharps who played the 7.5, they're not gonna still play, or they wouldn't recommend playing Florida at 5.5. So you have to ask yourself, well, is at that point, is it Florida money line? Like I mean, do you think Tennessee has value now? And I'm torn. I really am torn. I don't really know what to make of this one. I think 5 is is pretty low. I'm kind of leaning with the under. I think under might be my lean at 57.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
If I was forced to play this game, I would take the under. If I had to pick of the 4 options,
Mhm.
I would go with the under way before I choose a side. I think Florida's defense can keep it close enough. And I mean, Tennessee, we saw what they did against Austin P. I think they can keep, I think they can make enough mistakes, or I don't know, to keep it under that number. But
Mm.
I don't know. It's tough. I'm wondering.
You know what we could do here? This is, at least for me, when I have like these games where I'm just like really torn and I can make a strong case either side. I like to in-game these more than anything,
Mhm.
just to kind of see, because Tennessee could get off to a hot start, and maybe I'm like, well, I don't think Florida is built to come from behind. But if it turns into a game where maybe Florida gets up a little bit at first, then I could see myself like potentially playing like something live if it gets that way. But if it's the other way around, this is just the way I'm looking at it. Maybe just play something live, like one way or another, just to kind of see, because I just don't think Florida's built to come from behind if they get down.
Yeah, and you can get you're right, a Tennessee, I can see them, if there are any swings in this game, I can see, and I think Tennessee's going to have to win the game. So I think that's kind of how they're going into it, is
Mhm.
with the mindset that they have to get up at the very beginning and keep that momentum going. So I think that's a really good point, is, Tennessee's up by 2 scores, for example, maybe then hit that Florida cover if you
Yeah.
want to take a side.
I think we'll see a trick play in this one. I think Florida
Yeah.
will bust something out. Like it seems like this would. I wish we could just have like a prop bet. Like they'd have to specify though, like what the trick, like what is a trick play, right? Because then it would be subjective, and then people would be like, "That's not a trick play." So
Will
that's
Florida
probably
attempt
why they
a
don't
flea
have it.
flicker or something like
Yeah,
that?
flea flicker or fake punt. Yeah, they need to just specify what that would look like. But yeah, this is going to be fun. I'm excited to watch this one. I guess I'll be watching a little bit of it before I get to the tailgate for the CU-CSU game. But let's transition to the next game. I think I have a video clip for this one somewhere. Yes, let's play that right now.
That's gonna make the fucking difference between winning and losing. Between living and dying.
Good hold. And the kick is blocked. Appalachian State has stunned the college football world. One of the greatest upsets in sports history.
All right, any given Saturday, talking about a big dog, or a larger spread. Now, look, the clip there, that's Appalachian State, Michigan. That was like a spread of like 30 something. This is different, right? But this is a interesting game on a few different levels, right? Because we don't have to get into the details of it, but yeah, Mel Tucker, he fudged up a little bit. He's not going to be coaching in this game, so he's on, I think, administrative leave. I believe is what they're calling it, and yeah, won't be coaching. I don't think he coaches another game at Michigan State. From coming from a Colorado fan, yeah, it is what it is. It is what it is. Yeah, Mel Tucker. Yeah, Mel tucked up, Nick says. So, look, the easy thing, Iveta, in these games, like when there's something like this that happens, the easy thing to do is to immediately play, Washington in the spot, right? But I want to challenge people a little bit. And I'm going to play devil's advocate. So spreads at 16, 16 and a half, totals at 54 and a half. Something that just came to my mind late last night while I was feeding the baby. I handicap while I feed the baby. That's what I do. I think I was listening to, I don't know what it was. I can't even remember, but someone said, yeah, a lot of these players, they may just transfer after this season or whatever. And I kind of had the thought, I'm like, well, there is a lot of distraction with Mel Tucker, but from a Michigan State perspective, like there's a lot of players on this team that want to prove themselves. And maybe they're kind of playing for kind of a dress rehearsal for maybe another team the next season, because now you can transfer and you can join the team in spring ball with the new transfer rules, and you don't even have to sit out. So part of me is like, maybe Michigan State actually comes out a little more fired up than some would guess. But at the same time, do I really want to take Michigan State plus 16 and a half? I don't know. That just seems weird. Like if I'm coming on here and that's my take, and Michigan State's just the team that I don't really like to begin with. So I wanted to just make that point because, again, it wouldn't be interesting if you and I just both come on here and we're like, oh, we're taking Washington because of the distraction. But at the same time, Washington is a really good team to begin with. So I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, this is a really interesting game. And I think the game itself is being overshadowed by this whole Mel Tucker scandal. Because on paper, this can arguably be, one of the best games of the weekend as far as, talent wise. There's probably 4 or 5 of them, right? But it's really tough to handicap because we don't know what headspace this Michigan State team is in. Right. So you mentioned some of that. They brought in D'Antonio as a sort of consultant / advisory role. And then with Barnett as the new head coach, right? I think that'll invigorate the Spartans, but who knows? Because you don't know, the team could be split for all we know, as far as some of them might be, Team Tucker, and some of them might be,
team whatever other team I'm
right.
on in a few months here. So
Exactly. So they could have, and I didn't even think about, I'm glad you mentioned that. I didn't even think about the transfer portal aspect of it. Like they're going to be playing in front of scouts and,
because think about like 5 years ago in this situation, right? Where maybe it was 5-6 years ago, where you couldn't transfer without sitting out a year. So like if you're that player, like again 5-6 years ago, where you're like, well, shit, my season's pretty much done. My coach is an idiot. Like what do I have to get up for, right? But now
check out, yeah.
But now you have that maybe little extra layer that says like, well, I could go play for Western Michigan next year and start. The really good talent could say I could play at a bigger school, but like now they want to prove themselves, right?
Exactly. And so when we look at the X's and O's, right? So scandal aside, as difficult as that is to ignore, right? But Michigan State, this is really interesting. So it's kind of deceiving because they haven't won a lot of games in the past couple seasons, but they've actually done pretty well covering the spread. I think there's something like 17-9 ATS or something like that. And they should be able to run on the Washington defense. They got a pretty strong running game. But of course, the Huskies, outshine the Spartans at pretty much every skill position: quarterback, wide receiver, tight end. The only position that Michigan State has an edge over the Huskies is maybe, is probably running back and maybe D-line and special teams, because Cameron Davis, if Cameron Davis was playing, then, they'd be he'd be able to match up well. But Cameron Davis is out for the year. And then defense wise, Michigan State probably wins in every category, but Washington still has a pretty good defense. This is their first true road test, so I'm a little worried about. Also, they're playing on turf. So Washington historically, they're playing on grass, and historically they don't play so well on grass. They play on turf and they excel on the turf, but they're they've got a little bit of an issue with the grass. So the coach was saying that as soon as they got there, I think Tuesday was their first practice. So they went and practiced on some unidentified grass field, just so that wouldn't be the first time that the players are playing on grass. So Penix has only been sacked once on 78 pass attempts. So the Huskies have a stellar offensive line. Now, Michigan State does rank fairly high in sack percentage. So we'll see how the Huskies O-line holds up, especially in that environment. Both QBs are averaging about 11 yards per pass attempt. Penix is more efficient than Noah Kim. I think if Washington plays the way that they've played, now this line is big. This is an overreaction line. I think this should be closer to maybe somewhere between 11 and 14, in my opinion.
Because it was around 14 and a half before the news broke. So I think after that news broke, it was obviously it was pretty obvious which way it was going to move, and it's moved in Washington's direction.
Right. So your first instinct is to take Washington, but I do see a lot of the money starting to go, or when it got to 16 and a half, starting to go the other way. If you're apprehensive about the Mel Tucker thing, another good angle might be to target the first half. And I'll tell you why. And I saw someone in the chat, Scrunch.
Yeah, so Scrunch.
I saw mention that. Yes. So
I'm gonna pull it up on the dashboard, unabated to see. So first half, 8.5, 9.5 is kind of what we're looking at.
Okay, it was 9.5 when I last looked at it. I think that's still decent, still under 10.
Yeah,
So
9.5, pretty much across the market, 9.5.
yeah, I think that should be the play there, because if you look at Washington comes out the gate hot. They are 9th in the country in first half points. Now, again, this is their first road game, and this is the best defense they've faced so far, but a 9.5 first half point margin is a pretty good line for such an elite offense. And then if you look at Michigan State's recent games, they have a tendency of starting out a little slow. So I think that is the biggest edge there.
So you're saying you like Washington first half?
I like Washington first half.
Gotcha.
I think Washington will, just based on past performance and how they've played in first halves in the past, I think they can cover that 9.5. I'm way more comfortable with that than the 16.5 for the full.
This may be one where I know it's always an easy thing to say, I'm going to hit it live, but I definitely want to just see how things kind of play out in the first quarter. I'm going to probably wait and not have any action on this one until maybe live, and maybe I don't. Because something tells me that if I hit that 16.5 for Michigan State, then it's going to look bad, and Washington wins by like 30, and I'm like, well, why did I do that with all the controversy? And then my head is saying, no, you should probably take Michigan State, but I don't know. I'm going to go back and forth on that, and I continue to. So I guess my lean though would probably have to be Michigan State plus 16.5 if I had to give something out here.
And if that line got up to 17, which I don't think it will.
I don't think it will either. We'll see. I mean, we still have a few more hours. It could.
Because it's a 5 p.m. Eastern kickoff.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a weird time.
That's some time.
Yeah, so if it gets to 17, then I think that's, obviously changes the game, but at 16 and a half, anything between 14 and 17, yeah, God, I mean, that's a tough that's just a tough range. But I do like, and I could be completely wrong, but just I've looked at their past games in the last few years, and uh, I think Washington. I think that will at least be their game plan. Whether they can execute that effectively, we'll see. But I think that will be their game plan, is to come out hot and then maybe get a decent lead on Michigan State.
Yeah, this is a good point by Nick. I mean, the only way that it doesn't get to 17 is if Michigan State gets the ball and scores on that first possession, and you would need a lot to go right. First, you would have to have Michigan State receive the ball, and you would have to have them score, which we know that they haven't been doing early in games. So
Right.
if they end up getting the ball, hopefully, they have just a few possessions or a few maybe first downs or a 3 and out, and then you can hit Washington live, or sorry, Michigan State live, or you know that I think that's a really good point, because it's right there, and you might as well. And if you miss it, hey, it happens. But I don't have enough conviction right now, so I'm fine with waiting for that 17.
Especially with all the other options out there, right? This isn't like a Friday slate or something where
Right? Yeah, yeah.
you feel like you have to take. I mean, I think there's better value out there.
For sure. And we have a channel point redemption to talk about a game. We'll hit it at the end. JMU. But let's transition to the next game, next category. I'll play now. Well, that's a hell of a hype up for Virginia Tech and Rutgers. Hey, we're doing our best here, It's funny because this category is for a low total, but the defenses aren't bad. Rutgers actually has a pretty good defense, but there's a reason why this total is pretty low, and it's because of the hurricane, as we alluded to earlier. So specifically, this game with the weather, 1:30 Mountain, so 3:30 Eastern. Let's get pretty specific with the weather expected in it's New Brunswick, New Jersey, correct? What are we kind of expecting to see throughout the game?
Well, like we mentioned earlier, the weather aspect of it will probably contribute. I'd say at this point, I think there are like 15-mile-per-hour winds or something like that. So it's not but again, that could mean higher gusts too, because the gusts aren't, incorporated in that.
Mhm.
So it's going
Yeah,
to be.
what are you seeing for gusts? Do you have a pretty good read on?
Well, it kind of depends. Probably 20 to 25 mile per hour gusts, something like that. So gusts up to and even 25 might be a stretch, depending on depending on where the storm is at the time. But I would say, yeah, maybe 20 mile per hour gusts, something along those lines. And actually, I don't know. I can tell you right now what the updated
Yeah, let's hear it. I mean, we
numbers
might as
are.
well
So
pace a little bit. Yeah, I'll continue while you find it.
yeah,
So, uh, yeah, this total was, I think, opened up at 42 and 42 and a half, and it's been dropping. I think I got in at for 41, 41 and a half. Um, I would have to check in velocity. Thank you for the note, man, or the comment. I appreciate that. Yeah, like you said, winds are going to be high. Rutgers has a pretty good defense. Virginia Tech's offense has struggled. Now, I know there were some injury concerns with, I believe, Grant Wells. He's a game time decision. So that makes it tricky. I'm spacing the backup's name. So maybe someone in chat can let me know. But yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, I don't really think that him being in or out changes too much on this, just because of the weather stuff, because it's not like there's no wind and it's going to make a huge difference. I think at this point it's like can the quarterback like hand the ball off? Yeah, because there's going to be a lot of running plays. But yeah,
Oh yeah.
Rutgers defense is pretty good, and Nick, I think he's being serious here. I hope he's being serious because I'm putting the comment up here.
Rutgers was his favorite play.
Yeah, I can't tell if he's serious or not. I think he actually is. He's adding some comments.
Yeah, no, I mean he's absolutely
Oh,
right.
he's 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, Nick's a college football sharp today, and it's gonna hit too. And I'm probably gonna probably tell it.
Well, and not only can they not run the ball, they can't stop the run either. So it goes both ways there. So I agree. I actually like. Oh, he got Rutgers.
I wonder if he got that on Sport Trade. It seems like a Sport Trade line.
Half.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So
Because I
faith
think this game is going to be like 30-7 or like maybe 28-7 or something like that. I feel like it could have potential.
Yeah, I can't see Virginia Tech scoring more than 14 points here. I think it's going to be between 7 and 14. I just checked the weather forecast, and the updated numbers for the Hurricane Lee games are Florida State at 23 miles per hour, 16 miles per hour for FIU UConn. And this Virginia Tech Rutgers game, because of the way that the coastline is shaped, it says that it's now down to 10. So the wind has, as the hurricane is continues to move to the northeast, they're not getting as much wind anymore from that system. So with a sustained 10 mile per hour, I mean, they'll probably still see gusts 15, 18 miles per hour, something like that. But it's not going to be as big of a factor as previously thought. So,
but it's okay though, because I think if the weather is not an impact at all and headed into the game, there's no wind, I still think this total's around 38 to be like to close anyway in my eyes, because I mean, look at Virginia Tech. They're potentially without their starting quarterback. Ali Jennings is their best wide receiver. He's out. Jalen Lynn is going to be game time too. So you're already headed into this game at a pretty big disadvantage offensively.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I haven't looked, obviously, because this just updated on Better Weather. So that's just what the weather forecast that it's pulling in says. So we obviously haven't analyzed it. So it could be a little bit higher. It could be 12 to 13 miles per hour or something like that. But yeah, in this case, it doesn't matter. Rutgers defense has looked phenomenal. They force turnovers. They're great at controlling the clock. That's something else that they do really, really well. They have a good run game. And Kyle Monangai, this guy is an absolute stud. He ran for 165 yards against Temple. So with Virginia Tech not being able to stop the run, I can see him having
maybe 200. What's his prop, guys? Can someone get a prop for me? I know in Colorado the prop market's weird for college sports. It sucks how state to state everything is different, but there could be some people in legal states that might be a pretty good look, because the game script is going to play right into him having a big game too.
Oh yeah. 100%, especially with all the injuries, like you said. So yeah, whatever his prop is, I think that might be a good play. But yeah, I'm with Nick. I like Rutgers as well. I think it's a mismatch in this case, and poor Virginia Tech, they just can't catch a break, because I feel like everyone they play just, it's just a disadvantage to them.
Yeah, and it sucks because Virginia Tech, it's a team that we're used to, like the Beamer Ball and Enter Sandman and having like a pretty good team. But yeah, it's been pretty rough the last few years, and this year is not looking good at all. So they're gonna need another Deion Sanders to appear out of nowhere to revitalize that program. Because in a way, like, who knows? Look at what's happening in Colorado.
Right.
So I'm gonna have to go with the under. I mean, I'm still cool with it at like 38 and a half if you can find that.
Yeah.
Trying to think if there's anything else in this. I mean, the under and Rutgers would definitely be my two leans.
Yep. Same.
Alrighty, let's get into the next game. We don't have the clip fired up for this one. Apologies. But this one is a game we're talking about with a high total, and that's Western Kentucky and Ohio State. See what it's at right now. So 65 and a half. It's up there. It's not a 70 total, but 65 and a half. It's above average, of course. Ohio State favored by 30 at home. Couple notes in this one. I think I can pull it up here on unabated. Let's see if they have it. Wow. Ohio State has a lot. I guess it's not on here. Oh, wait. I have to go to maybe Western Kentucky. But anyways, Malachi Corley is playing in this game. He was injured in Western Kentucky's first game this season. He's their best wide receiver. I think he's going to be playing in the NFL. He's really good. A guy that a lot of scouts are salivating over. So he's back in this one. Ohio State, though, like on offense, hasn't really done a lot, and they've looked a little off to start the season. Now, I don't know if you hit the panic button because it's so early. It's not conference play yet, but it's still kind of weird to me that they've just not had one of those offensive outings yet. And I think a little bit with this total, that's been reflected of that, because I would have guessed that this total would have been closer to 70, to be completely honest. But I think partly how Ohio State has looked offensively. So what are your thoughts with this game?
I don't know if I'm missing something with this line. As soon as I saw it, it just kind of flagged me, right? Before I even ever dug into the game, but I saw that, and first instinct, Western Kentucky is getting 4 touchdowns. Like, what am I missing here? Because I understand that they may have some newly minted confidence now that they found a quarterback in McCord, but Ohio State is only scoring 30 points per game. Like you said, they haven't had that explosive offense that they've had in the past. So, and Corley is, man, Ben, you just hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, stud. He's a dog.
He is elite. Last season, he was 4th in the nation in receiving yards, 7th in receiving touchdowns, 1st in yards after catch, 1st in missed tackles forced. He is Deebo Samuel straight up.
Yeah, he's really good. And yeah, here's the note here. He's back, and I think they got a few other guys back too, potentially. So yeah, I mean, the offense should be ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, Austin Reed is an elite veteran, right? He led the NCAA in passing yards last season. Ohio State is 0-2 against the spread. They have an unproven secondary, new quarterback, like we said. And on top of all that, this is a look-ahead game.
Yeah, look at right here on screen. It's right there. Good call.
Yeah. So what I don't the total, like you mentioned, the total too, right? When I saw the total, I was like, that seems low.
Does seem low for this game. Yeah.
For this game. And then why is Western Kentucky, why is this not like a 20 and a half, 21 point spread at least? I mean, what is it that we're not seeing here? And I mean, I could be proven completely wrong once the game actually starts. There might be some sort of mismatch there that I'm not picking up on. But at first glance, especially with Corley coming back, I love Western Kentucky here. It's one of my favorite plays of the day. I mean, I don't know how at the 28 or is it what is it at now?
I'm showing 30 if you have DraftKings, Pinnacle has a 30. Yeah, it's gone up to 30, which is, I mean, it's wild to me. It opened at 26 at Circa, And you would think that with some of the injury news in a good way supporting Western Kentucky, the line would support it. But I don't know. Maybe the market is expecting Ohio State to actually have one of those performances where they just come in and they, put up 48 points. But for me, I like Western Kentucky. I'm with you. But I think in a little hedging perspective way, the way I'm thinking here is if for some reason Ohio State does have a game like that where they score, let's say like 52 and Western Kentucky just, I don't know, what would it be, 21, and for some reason they don't cover, Western Kentucky doesn't cover, then the over is a breeze. So that's kind of how I'm looking at this game. So my favorite play, and I think I'm going to get to the window here, I should say my screen, since I just bet on my phone. It's like all the old school heads are like, yeah, we're getting to the window here. People are like, what do you mean by the window? Yeah, you could bet in person, guys, back in the day. You still can. But yeah, I think I'm going to get there with this over. I'm showing 64.5 even. Kind of like even Sport Trade. Shout out Sports Trade has a 63.5 at minus 117. So I think we could actually watch. This is pretty cool. Let's do the comparison tool. Oh, let's see if I can do it in real time. No pressure. 63.5 compared to, let's just do 65 at minus 101. Let's compare the two. It says both are a better line. That shouldn't be the case. Let's see here. Oh, maybe because they're exactly equal. I don't know. Yeah. Is that what it's trying to say? 65 equals. Okay. So that kind of makes sense. So yeah, you could play it either way. Yeah, I'm probably going to be there with the over. So that's going to be my lean.
Do you have a lean on on the first half at all? Do you a first half over or a first half side? I don't know what the number is, but that, just like the Washington Michigan State game, that there might be a play there too.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah. Well, let's look at the number here, and also shout out Lenny for the sub bang. 17.5 is the spread for Ohio State, and then Western Kentucky. Let's see, Ohio State over 35. So I don't really have I don't think I have a strong lean on a first half play. I guess I could kind of get behind a Western Kentucky first half spread, but I don't know. Someone did say that, let's see, Ohio State starts a little slow, likes to give up scores in the first quarter in the offense, because I know Pick Six is a Ohio guy. So yeah, that could be a lean too. Maybe it starts off a little slower. You take Western Kentucky first half, so that could be a look.
I like that with the hook too, because you said it's 17.5.
Yeah, get the hook. Yeah, I might have to write that one down. And
yeah, oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, I like that. I think that's the play. Pick Six. I like that.
Pick Six. Yeah, it's funny. He was in Vegas for March Madness. The same time that we ran into you and hung out with you. I should have introduced you guys, but I'm sure he'll be back next March Madness. Yeah, he's going to be at the game apparently.
Oh, so nice.
Boots on ground.
On the ground. Well, enjoy. Nice. It should be a good game.
Any weather in that one?
No, not to my knowledge. It didn't light up the board, so it didn't even.
Yeah. I know Ohio State, it seems like every year there's one of those games where they have some pretty gnarly wind. Maybe at least one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, or rain or something. Ohio's just such this time of year. I mean, it's just the weather there is just wild sometimes. So yeah, I'm with you.
Alrighty, let's get into the next category. Boom, here's the video clip.
These people don't give a fuck.
Yes, I can. Hold on here. Here it comes again.
Go Bulldogs!
Yale Bulldogs.
Oh, wow.
Not so fast, midget. Not so fast.
Midget. It's obvious I look good to Kuna.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
So you're picking West Virginia. You're going to go with the home team?
Not so fast, midget. That gets me every time.
I know what that's all about.
Yeah, I can't believe you said that, but whatever. So Colorado State. We got to talk about the Buffs. Come on. Is anyone sick of hearing about Dion yet? It's okay if you are. Yeah, so we have ESPN College Game Day there. We have Fox Big Noon Kickoff there. But yeah, Boulder is the epicenter, I guess, these days of college football and all the attention. So this spread 23.5 for Colorado, of course, totals at 63.5. So before I get to you, I saw this total at 57.5, and that was the opener, and I jumped on the over immediately because it was just too low the way that these I should say the way Colorado plays pace-wise on offense, and I thought Colorado State would be in a position to bounce back, and I think they still are. But that was before the quarterback news of Millen getting benched. So they're going to have a new quarterback in this one. I think that actually lends itself to some more points because you have the level of deception and just unexpected type of offensive plays, and I think that just can contribute to some more points. So that's probably why this total has bumped up a little bit on top of what I said, just with the pace of Colorado. And now with the comments that Jay Norvell made about Dion or whatever, people are like, well, now that Buffs are going to run up the score, and they might have tried to score as many as possible anyway, but I think that if it is in the fourth quarter, like, it's not like Colorado is just gonna say like, oh, we're good here, we don't need to continue to score. Like, I think they will try to punch the ball in the end zone. So 23.5 is the spread, 62.5 kind of the total, what I'm showing. What do you like in this one?
I love the over in this game. I took it at 58, and I so I just found this out, Ben, that Colorado State was the only FBS team that had a bye last week. So
that's really weird.
yeah, isn't that weird? So even I don't think the quarterback difference. I mean, I don't think the quarterback change is going to make that much of a difference. I don't know. Admittedly, I don't know that much about either quarterback.
Braden Fowler Nicolosi is his name. He started 2 games last season, I think, and one of them, I mean, on its own level, was a big game because it was Norvell's return to Nevada, and he ended up starting in that game, and he played pretty well, and it was kind of a hostile environment, again, in its own right for Mountain West. So he does have some experience, but I'm telling you, like Boulder, I was there last weekend, like that is going to be an atmosphere that he has not seen before.
Right. And Colorado State doesn't have the Nebraska defense either. So, I mean, they came out and surrendered 556 yards. Both teams play fast. If you look at their pace, they play fast. Even if Colorado State does hang with Colorado, even if they cover, even if they lose by 21, whatever, I don't see this game slowing down at all. This total was just mind-boggling to me. I thought it should have opened at like 65 or something like that. So,
yeah. I think it still should be 65.
Yeah. So
I still think there's value here. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That is my favorite play of the week. And then now I really like that Western Kentucky first half 17.5. So I got to add that to my best bet. But I love that. I mean, it just seems free, which I don't know. It could be a trap if it seems that free. I'm not really sure, but I'm with you there.
Yeah. And look, this, there's a big rivalry with these two teams, but it kind of got it propelled just with the comments, and now it's like, okay, now it really does feel like a rivalry again. Because when you have a team that's favored by 3 touchdowns, it's kind of like, whatever. But now, I think both sides, thinking about the fourth quarter, right? Because we're going to get points throughout the game. If CSU's losing big, like they're still going to try to punch the ball in. There's going to be no quit, I don't think, in Jay Norvell, especially after. So they're going to try to score. And I just think there's just a lot of different ways that this can hit. Like if Colorado puts up 50, which I think could be a possibility, then you only need, like 2 touchdowns out of Colorado State. Or, let's say Colorado State does have some success. They score like, I don't know, 21-24. And that could go over the total too if Colorado scores like 40. Colorado State does have a really good, talented wide receiver. Torrey Horton is his name, and he's going to be playing on Sundays. If they can try to get him the ball, I think there could be some possibility to the Rams having some big plays. But they're going to have Travis Hunter on him too. So that's going to be a really fun matchup to watch for. But yeah, I think the over is still at 62.5 on a few spots. I think that's still a pretty good look.
And I like, is it Art Claus here in the chat, throwing out the alt lines. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And thank you for the better weather shout out as well. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
But and Zach is as well. Yeah. So I mean, that's what should have happened in the last few Colorado games, right? Take all the alts if you can.
Yeah.
So
But
yeah,
Oregon is on deck though. I mean, that may be the elephant in the room to talk about this spread. I'm not concerned though, like with the look ahead spot. And I think I forget where I saw this, but someone summed it up pretty well. Like they're asking Dion and the players all sorts of questions. Like if Jay Norvell doesn't make those comments, I think they're asking questions like, you have Colorado State and then you have some big games coming up, Oregon, USC, like da-da-da-da-da. But there's no attention on this next week's game because of those comments. I think they're just so hyper-focused with this game. So I think that just lends itself to a Colorado cover and an over. And I will say, I was looking for a Colorado State first half if it got to 14, but I don't think it's going to get there. Oh, there is a 14 on Bovada. So here's my thinking, Iveta and chat. If for some reason Colorado State does move the ball just a little bit, I do think they could catch Colorado off guard at times with the air raid just because there's only one game of film for Colorado State and this quarterback doesn't have a lot of film. So I could see Colorado only being up like 10 at half, but it's risky. It's just an angle. So.
And Colorado State's got Middle Tennessee on deck. Just.
Yeah. So they're not.
Yeah. So they're not exactly, they're putting all their eggs in this basket here. This is, they're going to show up for this game, whatever that means in the context of Colorado State's team. But yeah, I can't wait to watch it. Should be really interesting.
Yeah. I think it's the last game of the night.
Oh yeah.
So it's going to be pretty fun. Alrighty, let's get into the last segment. Let me get it here. Boom.
This will be the same thing. McDonald will not even hand it off. Oh!
Found a little alley.
He should go down. He wouldn't go down. He should go down.
He's going to the house. Touchdown to Falcons. Marshawn Lynch.
I might have to update this clip with like the Texas Tech game. Oh my gosh, I'm still not over that. Unbelievable. Anyways, yeah, we're talking best bets here. I'll start off with you. Iveta, what's your best bet in this or this slate?
So the Western Kentucky first half, love that now that I know what it is. Colorado State over. I also like the under in the. Sorry, I have a lot of best bets today. For whatever reason, I just got carried away with all the games. Arkansas, BYU under. I like that one. I like West Virginia to get it done. Another great rivalry. They show up for big games. I mean, those fans are going to be fired up. That blue lot is going to be packed. Moonshine's going to be flowing. Those country roads are going to take us all the way to the bank. I feel like they are going to. That's yeah. I mean,
West by God's a big West Virginia
oh
guy.
yeah,
So.
there we go. There we go.
Yeah.
Pitt leads the series 62-40, 62-40 and 3. But West Virginia, even when they're having a down year, I mean, again, they show up for big games. So I like them to cover at home in the backyard brawl. And then yeah, and I think those are my those are probably my best bets. But I do like a lot of things on today's slate.
So you said the over in Colorado State.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's going to be mine. Let me pull it up here. I just want to see what it's at right now. Yeah, I think if you can find a 62.5, it's a pretty good look. There's a 63.5 at -102, which is not the worst look. And this best bet segment is sponsored by Sport Trade. So pulling them up right here. So 63.5 -102. I think that's not a bad look. I think again, I think this should be closer to like 65. Superbook has a 64. So yeah, that over again for the same reasons I just mentioned. It's just going to be a game. Offenses are going to be playing at a fast pace. CU is going to try to score as many times as possible. I think we'll see a defensive score in this game too. I wouldn't be surprised if like Travis Hunter has a pick six. Or some sort of score on the defensive end. So that's going to be my best bet. Real quick, let's talk about the James Madison game since someone brought that up. This is a game I have not dove into, so don't have too much to say. But I will say that this total has been dropping significantly. I mean, it was at 49.5 on the open, down to 46. Spreads at 2.5. Have you looked at this one at all?
I have actually. This was a game in one of my pick'em pools, so I actually had to pick it, and I went back and forth for like an hour on this thing. I kept going back and forth, JMU to Troy, and I ended up going with. I think I ended up picking James Madison at the end, but I feel very unconfident about that. I mean, I think it could go either way. Just based on what we've seen from both teams, I don't know. It's a toss up. I see the line because it was at 3, right? Or 3.5.
Let's see here. Let me look
Okay.
at the
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it touched 3 for a little bit and then got bought back down immediately. So
yeah. So I took it at +3. Thought that was decent value just because it could be a coin flip. But I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I didn't look into that one too much, but yeah, a lot of steam though coming in on that under. Yeah, I think Nick does make a good point about the quarterback play. That could lend itself to an under, of course. But yeah, that would be my thoughts on that one. Any last words, chat? Yvetta, I got about 3 minutes. I gotta go tend to the baby. But well, look at the board start to light up. Yeah, again, this slate, I think there's a lot of good betting opportunities. I think a play that I like a lot that we didn't mention. It could have been my best bet for the side, but I think Toledo, even at 7.5, I know people see that hook and they don't want to take a favorite at 7.5 or like 10.5, 14.5, but I think this spread should be closer to 10. I think Toledo is a pretty good team. Chevin, what is his name? Cordero. Like, I think there's a lot of talk about him, but their defense is not that good. And I think Toledo at home will get the job done San Jose State playing their third road game, their fourth straight game. So I think that maybe that can catch up to them in this spot. So I like Toledo. Toledo is good. My next door neighbor plays on their defense. That sounds like it's not true, but it's like it's so random that I believe you. That's great. That's great. Well, you can let them know that Capwise likes them today. So there you go. Anything else?
The only other game that I think is very intriguing that we didn't have time to talk about is just that Mississippi State LSU game. I'm just curious to see how that goes without the air raid. Despite Will Rogers' arm, they have more rushing yards per game than passing yards, right? Arnett's teams typically have a 60-40 run to pass ratio. So, but they have a QB who's in contention to break the SEC all-time passing yards record and already holds the record for SEC career completions in a game, passing touchdowns in a game, passing touchdowns in a single season, and passing yards in a single season. So it's just interesting to see how that their season's gonna, as far as today's game goes, like, will LSU be able to stop the run? I think is what it comes down to. I don't have a lean either way. I've kind of toggled back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
I just think this game has bigger implications as far as for the rest of the season, what we're going to see from LSU and from Mississippi State, and just seeing, how they're going to kind of, it'll give us a lot of insight on really the SEC, that and the Florida Tennessee game. I think those two games are huge as far as SEC implications, because Georgia, South Carolina probably won't give us too much information. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah. And I think that, like, right now, people are like, is the SEC down a little bit compared to, some of the other conferences like the Pac-12, right? Like, I love that what a funny time to be alive. The Pac-12 getting all this notoriety, and then they won't even really be a conference next season. But yeah, that's a really good point about, just to see like LSU, like what they're going to be the rest of the season, because I think with the Florida State game, Florida State, you saw it in person. They look really good. So I don't think we know too much about LSU just quite yet. And I think this will be a good spot to see like what they're actually made of. So
exactly. Yep.
Yeah. What do we think of Clemson? That's a tough one. I probably lean under in that game personally, but it's just the lean.
Yeah, Clemson FAU, right? Is that who they're
playing? Because they have like you mentioned with Florida State coming up on deck. So big game coming up on deck.
And FAU didn't look too great in their last outing. So yeah, I would probably lean under in that as well. Or they could. Clemson could be trying to make a statement. You never know with Dabo. So
also, guys, another cool thing about Unabated, just watch it light up. I mean, it's crazy because games are starting like right now, but you're seeing some
morning.
You're seeing the late action coming in, and I need to place a few more bets myself. But yeah, thank you guys for hopping in. Thank you, Avetta, of course, for joining us today. I think we'll have you on Tuesday as long as my internet stays functional. But yeah, best of luck today, guys. You can follow Iveta on Twitter. That's her Twitter handle. Then you guys have your Bet Stamp account too, correct?
Yes. Yeah. For better weather. Yes, sir.
Cool. All right, guys. Yeah. And hop in our Discord too. We'll be chatting about these games. And if I have anything else that I fire up, I'll let you guys know. So appreciate it. Best of luck with the bets, and we'll see you tomorrow. Nick and I will be on for NFL, of course, tomorrow. So we'll see you guys later.
Thank you, guys. Happy Saturday.